Thank you for joining the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Northwestern Division for today's Missouri Basin conference call. In January, we will return to our monthly webinar schedule. The first webinar for 2020 will be held Tuesday, January 7 at 1 p.m. Central Time. Today's call is provided as a courtesy to congressional representatives, tribal, state, and local government officials, including levy sponsors and emergency managers, as well as the media. I am Eileen Williamson, and I will be your moderator. This call is recorded and will be placed on the Defense Video and Imagery Distribution System at www.dvidst.net/unit/USACE-NWD. Your participation acknowledges your consent to be recorded. All lines have been placed on mute. To unmute your line to ask a question, press *6. The forced mute function does not work on all phones, so if I ask, please use your phone's own mute function and do not place the call on hold. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the call. Today's agenda is as follows. The National Weather Service will provide an update of river stages, river forecasts, and weather forecasts. Missouri River Water Management Division will provide an update of inflows, reservoir storage, and release plans. Kansas City District Water Management will provide an update of lower basin reservoirs and planned releases. Kansas City District Emergency Manager will provide an update on levees in their area of responsibility, and the Omaha District will provide an update on levees in their area of responsibility, and we will follow with a question and answer session. With that, I will turn the call over to Kevin Lau.
Thank you, Eileen. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Lau, and I'm with the National Weather Service Missouri Basin River Forecast Center. We appreciate the Corps' invite to participate on these calls. The past month's precipitation has been near normal across the lower third of the basin. It's been a bit wetter than normal across South Dakota and eastern Montana. Mountain snowpack is about average for this point in the accumulation period, mindful, of course, that it's still very early. We do currently have some plains snowpack with heaviest amounts in the Dakotas. Most places there have an inch or less of water equivalent. We don't expect any significant weather producers across the Missouri River Basin during the next 7 days. We will pick up some more mountain snow, and we'll add a little bit to the plain snow, but no large organized systems. We also expect below normal temperatures over the next 10 days. For the month of December, the National Weather Service is calling for above normal temperatures across the basin and slightly above normal precipitation. Looking ahead 3 months for the period December through February, we do expect the odds for above normal precipitation to remain in effect. Currently across the basin, we have ongoing flooding along the James River in South Dakota, where some locations remain in major. And some locations along the James may remain above flood stage well into February 2020. The North Platte River in Llewellyn, Nebraska just receded out of minor flood stage, where it was above flood stage since Monday due to an ice jam. The Missouri River itself remains in flood from Nebraska City through St. Joseph, Missouri, and then again from Napoleon, Missouri through Miami. And these two reaches have remained above flood stage since March 13th. However, all locations on the Missouri River are expected to fall below flood stage by late this month, barring any unforeseen circumstances. The National Weather Service will issue its first spring flood outlook on Thursday, February the 13th. Thank you, and that concludes my National Weather Service brief.
Thanks, Kevin. Turn it over to John Remus.
Thank you, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Remus. I'm Chief of the Missouri River Basin Water Management Division. Our office is responsible for regulating the Missouri River mainstem reservoir system. Throughout the year, there has been a lot of discussion regarding the congressionally authorized purposes and the operational priorities for the system. It is important to understand that the authorized purposes and priorities are not the same thing. While the system is authorized for 8 purposes, the Corps' priority is life and health safety. In large runoff years, such as 2018 and 2019, or during an extreme hydrologic event, the flood control purpose drives the Corps' operational decisions for the system. During average or below average runoff years, the Corps operates the system for flood control and also makes releases to meet flow targets in the lower river for other purposes such as navigation and water supply. Due to high runoffs, system operational decisions have been driven by the flood control purpose since March of 2018. I want to assure everyone in the basin that the Corps remains fully committed to our flood risk reduction mission, protecting stakeholders when we can from significant runoff events that pose a threat to human health and safety. In 2019, Mother Nature has made managing runoff in the Missouri River Basin very challenging. People throughout the basin have been and or continue to be directly impacted, some severely impacted. The Corps is well aware of the damage that this year's flooding has caused, and we are doing all we can to reduce the impacts and assist in the recovery. It is important to understand that floods can and will occur regardless of basin or system conditions, including ice-induced flooding during the winter freeze-in and spring breakup periods, and flooding due to thunderstorms, particularly along the lower Missouri River, which cannot be mitigated by the operation of the main stem reservoirs. Before I ask members of my staff to provide specifics with respect to the Missouri River main stem reservoir system status and operations, it is important to understand that the volume, timing, and location at which runoff enters the system significantly impacts the timing and amount of releases. Each runoff season or flooding event is unique. Care should be given when comparing one event to another. 2019 continues to be a very wet year through the basin. This has led to excessive runoff into the reservoirs and into the unregulated streams below the system. The system's status and operation will be described in a few minutes and are aimed at evacuating the water from the flood control zones in the reservoirs before the 2020 runoff season begins. Given the basin conditions, our plan is to be as aggressive as we can with the evacuation process this fall and again next spring in order to provide the greatest amount of flexibility in the system. We will continue to evaluate the conditions on the ground and make adjustments as necessary. That concludes my remarks. Thank you very much. I will turn the call over to Kevin Grody now.
Thank you, John. My name is Kevin Grody, and I'm the Reservoir Regulation Team Lead for the Missouri Basin Water Management Office. The 2019 calendar year runoff forecast for the Upper Missouri Basin, which is the Missouri River Basin above Sioux City, Iowa, is 60.4 million acre feet, which is 238% of average. Through the first 11 months of 2019, we've seen 58.8 million acre feet, which makes the 2019 runoff year the second highest runoff in 121 years of record keeping. If realized, the forecast of 60.4 million acre feet would nearly equal the previous record runoff from 2011, which was 61.0 million acre feet. Specifically talking about November, the November runoff in the basin was about 2 times average, which is continuing the trend of well above average runoff in the basin, which we've experienced since March. As Kevin Lau mentioned earlier during this call, above average precipitation in western South Dakota and central and eastern Montana, along with snowstorms in some areas, contributed to this above average runoff during November. Current runoff trends, soil moisture, snow, and precipitation and temperature outlooks are the most important factors influencing the upper basin runoff for the final month of 2019. Soil moisture conditions continue to be very wet across most of the upper basin. And last week, a significant plain snowfall event occurred over South Dakota, northern Nebraska, and southern North Dakota. We're expecting that snow to be melting and becoming runoff during December. We are also monitoring mountain snowpack, which has begun. It's not factored into this December 2019 runoff forecast, but for those who are watching, it is about average in the Fort Peck region and it's slightly above average in the Garrison region. We will continue to monitor that snowpack accumulation, which normally doesn't peak until about mid-April. We expect the runoff to be above average in December based on current stream flow locations, soil moisture, and the temperature and precipitation forecasts. Now, as you know, the runoff season starts on or about March 1st, so our monthly forecast or our monthly studies that Mike is going to be talking about extend into the end of February 2020. Our forecast for January and February 2020 is about 1.5 times average for both months. And this is based on the current and forecasted basin conditions as well as the temperature and precipitation outlooks, which Kevin Lau previously talked about. Over the last 10 years, the runoff in January and February has been about 1.5 times average based on the 120-year long-term record. So in summary, the updated 2019 calendar year runoff forecast for 2019 is 60.4 million acre-feet, or 238% of average. I'll now turn it over to Mike Swenson to talk about the December 1 reservoir studies.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. System storage is currently 57.3 million acre-feet. System storage has decreased about 3.6 million acre-feet since the end of October. 1.2 million acre-feet of the 16.3 million acre-feet of total flood storage is occupied. The long-range monthly studies were updated and posted earlier this week and are based on the monthly runoff forecast that Kevin just discussed. Yesterday, we also posted an updated short-range or 3-week forecast to our website. Releases from Galvin's Point are currently 57,000 CFS and are being stepped down 3,000 CFS per day until releases reach 27,000 CFS in mid-December. Releases will be held at that rate through December. The long-range forecast shows Galvin's Point release of 25,000 CFS in January and February. Releases from Fort Randall are currently 48,000 CFS and are being stepped down to winter levels at a rate of about 2,000 to 3,000 CFS per day. Milwaukee Reservoir is at elevation 1608.8, 1.3 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. Releases from Milwaukee are also being reduced to winter release rates. Garrison Reservoir is at elevation 1839.1, 1.6 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. Garrison releases are currently 24,000 CFS. Based on the current forecast, releases will be reduced to 16,000 CFS by early next week in anticipation of possible ice formation and river freeze-in. Releases in December will be adjusted based on river ice conditions, with winter releases expected to reach about 24,500 CFS in January, downstream conditions permitting. Fort Peck Reservoir is at elevation 2238.4, down 2.3 feet since the end of October. The reservoir is 4.4 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. Releases from Fort Peck are currently 15,000 CFS. They will be reduced to 13,000 CFS next week, and the spillway will be closed at that time. We will continue to monitor conditions in the basin and make any release adjustments through the winter. Thank you. That concludes my update.
Thanks, Mike. I'll hand it to you, Eric, in Kansas City.
Thank you, Eileen. Today I'll provide an update on our current reservoir conditions within the Kansas City district and our water management decisions moving forward. The lower Kansas reservoir projects are making good progress towards emptying their stored floodwaters from this year's event. Over the past month, the occupied flood control space in the lower Kansas projects has reduced from 40% occupied at the beginning of November to approximately 4% today. Our current forecast indicates that Milford, Tuttle Creek, Perry, and Clinton should approach multipurpose pool within the next 7 to 14 days. Currently, these 4 projects are making a combined release of 18,000 CFS. We anticipate stepping that down slightly tomorrow to 17,000 CFS and making some adjustments as to where those flows are coming out of which reservoirs. And we expect to further reduce mid-next week as we approach multipurpose at each of these reservoirs. Now, at Harlan County Lake in south central Nebraska is progressing more slowly. Current releases are dropping the pool at Harlan County approximately 1/10 of a foot per day. The reservoir is approximately 3.5 feet above multipurpose pool, or 10% of its flood pool is occupied. The latest forecast indicates that we would reach multipurpose pool at Harlan County by January 1st. There is a potential that ice conditions could start there prior to January 1, which may cause us to carry some small storage over or to possibly continue to release slightly over the winter if it's feasible. However, we would expect that to be in the 1 to 3% range if we got caught with a little bit in that, and it would not be impactful to next year's events. We would be able to correct it or get it down to multipurpose earlier in the spring. The Osage Basin projects did get some inflow due to recent rainfall events over the holiday weekend, but they are operating as normal. We're making releases as we normally schedule with the small amounts of water in each of those projects. We expect that the reservoirs in the Osage Basin to be at their winter targets within the next week as well. That concludes my comments.
Thanks, Eric. Judd with Kansas City Emergency Management.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right. I'm Judd Knieven. I'm the Emergency Management Chief for the Kansas City District. Our Emergency Operations Center remains activated at Level 2, partial activation. This is our 268th day of flood operations. It's the longest flood event in the Kansas City District history. With improving river stages, we hope to be able to declare an end to this flood event at some point in the near future, possibly next week. Once the flood event has ended, we will resend a notice to public sponsors of levee systems that participate in the PL 8499 Rehabilitation and Inspection Program. The notice will tell the sponsors that they have 30 days to submit a written request for assistance. Sponsors will not need to resubmit a request for assistance if they have done so since March 13th of this year. Currently, we have 109 requests for assistance. The most recent was Abilene, Kansas, which was received earlier this week. This will result in approximately 68 levee rehabilitation projects after we've bundled the multiple requests for segmented levee systems. We've submitted 58 project information reports to our Northwestern Division for approval. 56 of those projects have been approved and are now in the engineering and design phase. We continue to anticipate most of the levee rehab projects to be advertised this winter, with bids following 30 days from the date of advertisement. We are working to complete the few remaining damage assessments we have left. We hope to complete those over the next 2 weeks. The plan is to be in Polk County, Missouri next week. Rock placement for the construction of the emergency measure to close breaches on the Big Tarkio levee in Polk County, Missouri has been completed. Rock placement at the Mill Creek breach resumed within the last 2 weeks. It'll be mid-January before rock placement is complete at that location. Following rock placement, we will increase the level of protection at each of the emergency repair sites by 4 feet with the installation of a HESCO barrier flood wall. This will be constructed using Corps of Engineers and local assets. As river conditions continue to improve, it's important to remember that many areas will continue to be vulnerable to flooding. Flood protection will not be restored by spring, and folks who live and work in flood-prone areas should remain weather and river aware. Thank you, and that concludes our remarks.
Thanks, Judd. Matt Kratzke, Omaha District.
Yep, thanks, Eileen. This is Matt Kratzke, the Readiness Branch Chief with the Army Corps of Engineers, Omaha District. Omaha District EOC remains activated at Level 3 as we continue to monitor basic condition in all the states within our district boundaries. Similar to the Kansas City District, as the Missouri River levels decrease and current conditions hold, we plan to lower our EOC activation to normal operations later this month. To date, we have completed 14 breach closures. We have 19 remaining. We also recently received funds to repair a riverbank failure on the Platte River that redirected a significant portion of flow towards the Plattsmouth water plant. We've developed plans and specification and are currently taking bids to repair that area. Construction will tentatively begin in January and will probably take 3 to 4 months to complete. Looking at some of the progress on the individual levees along the Missouri River since our last call, work continues on crest and side slope damage repair on levee unit L 611-614 just south of Council Bluffs. Also, closure of the outlet breach is expected the week of 9 December 2019. At Levee L575, crest and critical section loss repairs are being performed with 3 separate construction crews. The contractor also continues to stockpile clay and rock that will be used for future levee repair efforts on this system. The Omaha Right Bank levee repair project along the Missouri River at Omaha has been awarded, and the pre-construction meeting, is scheduled for later today. Work is expected to begin in the near future. Due to poor site conditions and after working with the project sponsors, work on the levee unit L536 will not begin until next year. This will provide the team and the sponsor adequate time to assess the condition of this levee and develop a clearly defined path forward for the rehabilitation project. Repairs are also continuing on tributary levees. The Western Sarpy and Cedar Creek project along the Platte River, the Columbus project along the Loup River are all under construction and expected to be completed next spring. Engineering and design continues on other levees on the Missouri River and tributaries, and as these are completed, we will continue to move forward with contract awards. For regular updates on repair efforts to flood control structures in the Missouri River Basin, visit the Omaha District's System Restoration page at https://www.nwo.usace.army.mil. Click on the red Levee Status Updates icon in the left side of the page. There you can track our status updates, view photos and videos, and track all status of the levee rehabs. We remain vigilant in light of sporadic storms, and we can't reiterate enough that life safety continues to be the primary focus of our efforts to repair the levee systems. We continue to work with federal, state, local emergency management agencies to keep the public informed. This concludes my comments. Back to you, Eileen.
Thanks, Matt. We have 53 people on the call today. Thank you for joining us. We're going to now field questions from congressional delegation members, tribes, state officials, local government, levee sponsors, and then after we've completed those questions, we'll move to members of the press. Remember to press *6 to come off mute to ask your question, and state your name and organization before asking your question. We'll start with the state of Iowa. Kansas. Missouri. Montana?
I'm sorry. This is Dan Claxton with KRCG-TV in Jefferson City, Missouri. I do have a question. I'm not sure if this would be for Eric or Judd, or Judd, or I didn't catch the Omaha District person's name.
Matt Kratzke. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is specifically regarding the Capitol View levee outside of Jefferson City, which is very important to the health of the local airport. Is there any progress being made on that? What is the progress there? Has work begun? That kind of thing.
This is Judd. No work's begun as far as repair, but we are working with them and we are advancing that project. Hang on just a second. Let me pull up the status. Sorry, I should have had it up. So Capitol View currently is at E&D. We're closing that process out, and we should begin working with the sponsors here quickly to start. They have to provide the real estate and also the earth and material. And I suspect that this is probably going to be advertised. It'll be after the first of the year.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Any other state, local government officials, state of Missouri? Montana?
Are these questions for anyone? I didn't catch that. Hello?
Yeah, state and local government officials, levee sponsors, tribes, congressional delegation members.
Okay. I have a question. How many projects? Joe Gibbs. I'm with Central Missouri. I'm an engineer for several districts. On the area between St. Louis and Kansas City, are there any levee repairs underway at the present?
Hey, Joe, this is Chet. We had 6 contracts out there prior to the flood.
Yeah.
And those are all still open, and as conditions improve, those contractors are expected to move in and to begin work again.
Okay.
But no additional projects have been awarded at this point.
Okay. Now, this is for both Kansas City and Omaha. You talk about contracts being let and work underway, but you don't distinguish between a federal levee system and a non-federal levee system. Is there a breakdown on that? Let's say for Omaha, you talked about repairs there. Were those all federal levees?
Joe, so we have 2 levees that are non-federal, and all the rest are federal levees.
I see.
And I didn't mention our 616, our 613 is non-federal, and then there are some other tributary levees that are non-federal, but all the other levees along the Missouri main stem are federal.
Okay, and that's in the Omaha district only.
Correct.
Yeah, and then in the Kansas City district, what's the breakdown on federal and non-federal there?
So the emergency measures in Holt County, the Big Tarkio and the Mill Creek levee districts, those are non-program levees that we're working on. So we don't refer to them as non-federal; they're just non-program. And then we have 6 non-federal levees that are under contract. We also have bids back on the North Kansas City federal levee.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Joe. State of Montana? Nebraska? North Dakota? South Dakota? Wyoming? All right, we'll move to the media. State of Iowa? Again, star 6 to unmute your phone and state your name and the organization you represent before asking your question. Okay, moving from Iowa, Kansas. Missouri?
Yes, hi, this is Dennis Sharkey with the Mountain City News. I got a question for Judd. You mentioned that work had begun on the Mill Creek project, but there was also another hole or breach on the other side of Mill Creek. Has there been any discussions or any talk or any plans made about that hole, filling that hole?
Yeah, so after we're done with the work, the Natural Resources Conservation Service is going to repair the Mill Creek levee. And they were on site today, meeting with the levee sponsor to discuss what that permanent project's going to look like.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And the point of contact there is Marty Comstock.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dennis. Any other media questions from the state of Missouri?
Yes. My name is Luke Victor. I'm with KMIZ-TV in Columbia, Missouri. I just had a couple questions for the Kansas City district. One of the questions I had, you mentioned that there were 68 total levees in repair, I believe, right now. How many of those are in Missouri?
I can get you that number. I just got to hang on just a second.
Sure.
Let me. Why don't we move on, and I'll come back to an answer with you here. Just give me a minute.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
That works.
Luce, did you have any other questions?
It was going to be an after question for that particular question.
Okay, so when Judd gets that number, we'll come back to you. Any other questions for the state of Missouri media? Okay, Montana? Nebraska? North Dakota? South Dakota, Wyoming. Any national press or additional questions? Again, *6 to unmute your phone. Judd, you got the answer for Luke?
Yeah, so there's 108 requests for assistance, okay? And so if you deduct about 15 of those, the remainder is all in Missouri. That makes sense. So it'd be, what's that, 87?
Okay.
Something like that now, or what's that, sorry, 15.
Yeah, 108 minus 15.
About 83.
Yeah.
About 83 are in Missouri. And then of the projects themselves that we expect to repair, the 68, there's they removed them. So there's 3. There'd be 12 then right now. Of those 68 would be in Kansas, and the remainder would be Missouri.
Okay. And you mentioned that, or someone had mentioned that flood repairs might not be done by the spring. Is that a majority in Missouri that wouldn't be finished up till then, or?
That is a majority. Most of them will not be repaired in the spring, and this construction will continue probably into the fall and into the next spring.
And are there, if, you know, what potentially could come to fruition with above average precipitation this winter, could that halt the repair process, or?
Yes. So, yeah, if we experience a unusually wet winter or an especially cold winter, that could impact our ability to make repairs.
Okay. And is there a place where I could access Missouri's levee repair progress publicly, or any way that we could access that information kind of on the fly if we need to?
I don't think I have it sitting on my our district webpage, but I'll work with my team and we'll get something set up so you guys can access the newest information.
Okay. Can I give you an email address so that I could get that emailed to me?
Sure.
Okay. My email is luke.victor@kmiz.com.
KMIZ?
KMIZ, correct.
I'll send you an email tomorrow.
Okay, cool. All right, Thank you very much.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Any final questions before we adjourn?
Yes, this is Joe Gibbs again. Any report on the damage to the channel or the revetment or the rock structures? And if you do have you received enough approval on money to begin work on repairing those rock structures, revetment and dikes and so forth?
Hey, Joe. This is Matt Kraske in the Omaha district. I can speak a little bit to that. The water hasn't dropped out enough up here, at least yet, for us to go out and do the assessment on the structures. We do have that scheduled for to do an aerial surveillance in probably mid-January or so. They're scheduling a helicopter.
Yeah.
I can't speak to the funding since I don't know how much damage there is, though.
I see.
Yeah, so in Kansas City, it's much the same, Joe. We have not been able to see a structure in 2 years. So once the water recedes, they'll be on the river. We have received some appropriation to repair both bank stabilization and navigation project structures and MRRP, Missouri River Recovery Program, structures associated with chutes. But we did not receive what we had asked for in total.
I see.
Don Nelson in Nebraska, please restate the January time and date.
Will do. The January call will be held Tuesday, the 7th at 1 p.m. Central Time.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Joe Gibbs again.
Yes.
do you happen to have the elevations on rock dikes? In other words, how can a local levee district look at a dike, let's say, and see if it's shot or in bad shape or something? But do you have elevations or distances from construction reference planes, or how could we get that information so we could look at it ourselves?
We do have all of that information. The best course of action would be to contact our river engineering section, Mike Chapman, for that information. And I'll send you an email, and I can provide you with his contact info.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Do you have my email on that? Or?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Joe, this is Eric Shumate, and we'll coordinate it through Judd in that email, but if you have specific locations, that would be great. That way we can identify which ones you're specifically looking at. Of course, we have structures, every 1/10 of a mile or so.
Well, now I have a book that gives me the mileage on it, but I noticed that maybe dikes have a little bit different number than the river mile. So maybe in your email, if you wish, is tell me dike number, whatever it is, then so that we're on the same page. But it seemed like the mileage number on dikes were different than the actual river miles. Is that right, or?
That is correct.
Yeah, they will not be. Most were built and named after mileage prior to what's the current river mileage. So we'll get with Judd, and we'll coordinate with you, Joe, and get which ones you're interested in and get you the information.
Well, I have a I've forgotten hydrographic map. Is that what that's called? From '94. And that has the dike numbers on it, I think, doesn't it?
It does.
So that would be the information that would identify them for us, the ones that you're interested in.
Okay, it's called a hydrographic survey map.
Yep.
Okay, and that has the dike numbers on it and revetment numbers and so forth. Okay.
Oh. We'll have Judd shoot you Mike's information, but if you can gather your interest locations, we'll get those answers.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah, we had a lot of riverbank erosion down here and sloughing, and I know that the dikes were repaired here after 2011, and those things keep the river away from us. But we have a real simple way of measuring that.
All right. Thanks for your questions, Joe. I think Eric and Judd will be working with you, so if you have any additional questions, they'll be able to take care of those as well.
You bet.
One last call for anyone else?
I had one more question. This is Luke again.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
So I guess my final question for you guys is, the fact that the levees won't be done by spring, is that just a sheer numbers issue, I'm assuming, in terms of, there's just too many to repair in the amount of time?
It's a combination of factors. It has to do with the numbers, but it also has to do with the duration of the flooding and the conditions that we experienced in a lot of locations that just prevented us from getting in there and doing damage assessments, identifying borrow and repair alternatives and that type of thing. So it just takes a while.
Okay. And there's no issue with funding this. It's more of just going to be we need the time to complete this project.
Yeah, currently from the federal side, our funding stream has been good for our projects. The state of Missouri has also appropriated funds to help the local non-federal sponsors with their cost shares, and we have that process worked out with them. And so right now, yes, we think we're in pretty good shape.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm afraid to ask. One last call. Any questions before we adjourn? Okay, the next call is scheduled for Tuesday, January 7 at 1 p.m. Central Time. We appreciate your participation today. Do please make sure that you disconnect your call. We've had a few times where calls have remained open long after this call has ended. So with that, we will talk to you in January. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Repeat the time again, January the 7th on a Tuesday at what time?
1 p.m.
1 p.m., okay. And the same call numbers and contact numbers, correct?
We'll send that information out.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Mm-hmm.